we're going to go ahead and touch on a little national look at the national scope here and focus a little bit on the Big 12. But ESPN had their way too early predictions out for this coming season. What were your guys' thoughts on where they had their rankings overall, and B, focusing on the Big 12, who was too high, who was too low in your all's opinion? Andrew, we'll start with you.
Yeah, well, number one on the list, which is a pick that I absolutely love by ESPN. Normally, when you get these ESPN too early rankings and everything, there's always something to scoff at. But I think they got it on they hit the nail on the head with Purdue at the number one spot. They're returning their deadly trio from last year of Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, and Trey Kaufman-Renn. This was a team that they got to the Sweet 16 last year, where they lost by 2 points to a Houston team that lost in the national championship to Florida, of course. And they've brought in big man Oscar Clough from South Dakota State, who averaged 17-12 at South Dakota State. And he's a big guy. He comes in at 6'11", 260. That just feels like a Purdue center right there, up there with the Zach Edey's and the Caleb Swanigans. He fits in perfectly. So that pick at number one. And then you take a look at where they've got the Big 12 schools. They put Houston at 3, BYU at 6, Texas Tech is at 10, Arizona 13, Iowa State 18, and Kansas coming in at 21. So just about what you would expect for what Big 12 schools will be in the mix of the top 25. There is no Baylor in there, of course, but these top tier Big 12 schools, as we start to move along with how conference realignment shaked out, is looking different now because you don't have your Oklahoma and Texas, of course. So it definitely still takes me a little bit to get used to seeing BYU and Houston as Big 12 teams, and now these are your two dominant Big 12 teams. It probably will be for a while, especially if BYU keeps getting all this money that they have to basketball.
Yeah, BYU is on the rise, and having the number one player in the 2025 top 100 in AJ DeBonsa will only help them climb, but that's not all that this team is. And I think 6 is a fair ranking for them. I'm actually not convinced that they're necessarily worse than Houston coming into this year, because outside of Uzan and Sharp, they don't have anyone that really has played good college basketball minutes or good enough to justify the 3. It's a very young team. They're the 3rd ranked team in the country. And I blindly trusting Kelvin Sampson. I don't think that's necessarily the wrong thing to do. But at the same time, a question has to be asked about that. It's a very raw and young team. And to put them ahead of the likes of a UConn or even, I'm not so high on St. John's this year, but even like a Michigan or a BYU, I don't necessarily know if I agree.
Really, I have to just challenge one thing you said there. You said you're not too high on St. John's, and what is it about St. John's that you're not high about?
I feel like
I love this roster.
Yeah, but the roster is only the roster, and I know that sounds like a stupid argument, but I feel like their magic was last year. I don't think they're going to be able to do it again, and whether do it again means win the Big East or compete for a national championship, I feel like this team is just not the same, and I feel like there's going to be a little bit of I don't know if I want to call it a mentality problem, but I just don't see a return to what they were.
Well, RJ Luis, of course, is gone now. He got like bullied out of St. John's by the fans and forced to enter the draft. Didn't get drafted, unfortunately. But they brought in Bryce Hopkins, Ian Jackson from North Carolina, Jozon Sannon from Arizona State, and Ozias Sellers from State. I don't know. I really believe in what Pitino can do with these guys. We saw the magic this year with RJ and Richmond at the guard position and how well they did in the regular season. Obviously, they got bounced pretty early in the tournament, but I always am a believer in St. John's. But moving away from them and back to the Big 12, I agree. I think BYU is probably the best team going into this. I mean, AJ DeBonsa has been considered possibly a better prospect than even Cooper Flagg is, and we saw what Cooper Flagg just did this year and how high he took them. And you pair this with everything that BYU's got going on. They're bringing back Richie Saunders, and they've got Robert Wright, who West Virginia fans probably know from Baylor. He just averaged 11.5 points a game there. Now he's Now he's coming in as like the third or fourth option on the team. The BYU is going to be lethal, and I think Texas Tech as well is going to be lethal. They don't have a lot of experience at the front court position, but they're returning JT Toppin, who's probably to have like a first team All-American season this year.
They lost Darian Williams though, and I mean, bringing back JT Toppin's huge, and then bringing in Lawan Watts as a three that can really make an impact is a good move. But I don't know how quickly they're going to be able to replace Darian Williams. That's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the roster, and I can only speak so highly about JT Toppin, but I mean also head coach Grant McCasland, who West Virginia fans know that name. That's because Ross Hodge took over for him at North Texas when McCasland came to Lubbock to take over the Red Raiders. But anyways, moving on to like the rest of the Big 12 in this early things is Arizona at 13, and I gotta say, if there's a team in here that I do think might be misplaced, is Tommy Lloyd's squad. They're returning some production. They're bringing back Jaden Bradley, but other than him, that's about it. They've got two guys in ESPN's top 15 rankings that are both 5 stars, of course, so that's always something to believe in. But I just want to hear your thoughts about Arizona.
I'm not convinced by them. But at the same time, I recognize that having 2 top 15 recruits could either mean that you're having a jump up or it's going to be a slow start. And I think that they do have the capabilities outside of those guys. They are relying on them a lot, but they have guys that have played solid minutes, Jaden Bradley. And I do believe in Tommy Lloyd. So I don't know how they're going to compete against the Big 12 teams we've talked about. I think Houston's better than them. I think BYU's better than them. I don't know if they're next. I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas is better than them. I know they're ranked pretty low down here. But Arizona, it's a prove it year for them. I'm not putting too much stock into them.
Yeah, no, Kansas seems to be a team that's they're very slowly, I think, slipping away a little bit now. Like last year was a very tough season.
I'm glad, I was going to be my next question. What in the heck's going on in Kansas? Are they now losing their place as the top team in the Big 12 conference? So keep going.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, Houston's already taken over that spot, I think, as the number 1 team. Like they're the team to beat. They're the Kansas of the past 15 years, what Kansas was, haunting the Big 12. And I don't know if it's Bill Self's just scheme not working anymore, but last year I had the privilege of being at the first round game where they played against Arkansas, and we saw Calipari and his squad, who Calipari's a coach, not he has a history of losing these first round games and tournaments, and he still was able to take down Kansas. And you look at their team this year, it doesn't strike Kansas into my eyes anymore. Like all the gritty players of the past, the Perry Ellis's, the Frank Masons, Devontae Graham, Josh, like all those guys that used to play for the team, I don't see one of those on this team. I do know that they have the number 2 recruit in the whole class in Darren Peterson, who will be a key anchor for them. But outside of him, the image just isn't there for me. I mean, they've got 2 guys coming in from the Big 12, or the A-10, excuse me, and Melvin Council and Jaden Dawson, who are going to be part of that starting lineup. And while they were great in the A-10, as starters at Kansas, I know I said the A-10 is a great league. I just can't see these 2 guys as starters at Kansas leading Kansas back to being what they were at their peak.
Yeah.
You know, it would be different if there were. It would be different if there were starters at Kansas and a team that already had established scoring. But these are the 2 most established scorers in their lineup. I get that the team lives and dies by Darren Peterson, but you'd wish they surrounded him with at least a little bit more esteemed scorers, especially for a team with the history and culture of Kansas. You've already been taken out of that top spot in the Big 12. No one's looking at Kansas to win national championships, at least for the last couple of years. If you want to get back there, bringing in a guy like Darren Peterson, of course that's going to help, but more importantly, you have to play the portal right, and I just don't think they did.
Yeah, I think this era, this is just my opinion, I think NIL has allowed some of these other teams to catch up with Kansas. So players that Kansas may have gotten in the past are now going to other schools who might have deeper pockets, like the BYU or Texas Tech, someone like that. Now, the revenue share era is here or on the way. Will that help with that? We don't know yet. We'll see. And two, the transfer portal, Kansas is not able to have guys like Perry Ellis hang around for what felt like 15 years and play for them for their entire career, right? Because guys are coming in 1-2 years and they're out, or they're having to transfer in. And it's also making me question Bill Self and his ability to find the right guys in the portal. Why all of a sudden is that a struggle for him? It's very baffling to me, but it'll be interesting to see how maybe they outperform. It's if I was a Kansas fan, I'd be concerned that we're having to build our team around a true freshman. I mean, yes, he's good. Don't get me wrong, but like you said, like Duke last year, Cooper Flagg, but Duke had a lot of talented players surrounding Cooper Flagg, right? He wasn't the only good player on that team. So I'm just concerned. If I was a Kansas fan, I'd be concerned about that, Dylan. Exactly what you said. Who else can pick up the slack? Maybe the two players you mentioned can, but yet to be determined. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see if Kansas can ever get their mojo back anytime here in the next year or two.
Yeah, and I think what previously happened in the transfer portal for them, that could potentially scare away some guys who are in the portal, the top level guys, from committing to Kansas, because two of the top guys in the portal last year were Rylan Griffin and AJ Storr, and they both committed to Kansas, and they both flopped at Kansas. Neither one of them worked out. And outside of Hunter Dickinson last year, they had Zeke Mayo, and DeJuan Harris has, of course, always been there, and he was always good. But DeJuan had a down year last year, didn't meet his expectations. Hunter Dickinson, you know what you're going to get from him, but if he has a bad game, it's really bad for Kansas. And I think that's building. I think everything that happened last year is building into this year for Kansas, and that's why you see BYU. They're so hyped up right now because they've got DeBonsa, of course, number one in the class, but they surrounded him with talent. And you mentioned Kansas; they've got number two in the class in Peterson, but the talent around him is just not there.
Yeah,
get that this is a team that isn't what they were. That's apparent. But the last two seasons for Kansas with Bill Self, I think stubbornness has started to become a problem, because this is a guy who's won NCAA championships. He's been constantly in the top three, or first even, in the Big 12. And then the last two seasons tied for fifth and sixth in the standings, round of 32, round of 64 in the tournament. Something's not working, but he's not putting in the ideas or implementing the structure to fix it. And it's something that I've seen with some of these older coaches that have been around for a long time. And maybe it is just the difference in recruiting and the difference in NIL. But there has to be something basketball-wise that he is just fundamentally not understanding. Because a guy who's as smart as he is as a coach can't just be missing something.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair criticism. Fair point.
And excuse me. No, go ahead. Team we haven't even touched on yet. ESPN has them at 18th in their rankings. This is a team that I think always outdoes their projection, at least under the in the era of TJ Otzelberger, is Iowa State.
Yeah, I can't believe how have we not talked about them yet?
Yeah, they're always a team that they're going to be up there. But I mean, of course they're losing Keyshawn Gilbert and they're losing Curtis Jones from last year, but they're still bringing back Taman, who's one of the top players in the Big 12. They've still got I always butcher pronouncing his last name, Momcilovic.
Milan Momcilovic.
Milan Momcilovic, yeah. And Josh Jefferson. They're bringing back almost 50% of their scoring from last year, which is not something that a lot of teams across the entire landscape of college basketball can claim. Right. And TJ Otzelberger is one of the best coaches in the country, so I'll always give Iowa State a little bit of props, and I don't think 18 is good enough for them.
Yeah, that's very fair. And man, thank you for giving them those shout outs, because I had completely forgotten about the Cyclones. Cyclones fans, forgive me. Dylan, what are your thoughts on the Cyclones, man?
It's kind of the same with the rest of the conference, where, I mean, they definitely do have better upside than 18. But at the same time, if you look at what their starting lineup's projected to be, and then you take into account what Dominic Nelson is projected to be, I feel like it's fair. I mean, they always do have that play from that ability that a lot of teams don't have. But I just think on paper, this is a pretty weak side comparatively to the rest of the list. So I can't really get mad at them for putting them that low.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, gentlemen, any last thing you want to touch on or things you want to say before we end the show?
Yeah, I wanted to say this is very early. It's July 24th, and March Madness isn't until March, of course, the end of March, and then into
Yeah.
April. But I'm gonna make a very early champion prediction pick.
Okay, let's do it.
And ignoring the fact that ESPN has them this high, I mean, I have to pick Purdue. I think this is the year that they're finally going to get over the edge. They have the elite guard play that has been around for a while, and I mean, Trey Kaufman-Renn and Oscar Clough at your 4 and 5 is just absolutely lethal. So I'm going to make an early prediction out there, and I'm gonna put it out there now. If I'm right, come April, I can do laps about it.
Dylan, do you have a hot take or a hot prediction?
I don't know how hot it is, but it's 3 Ds: Dan Hurley, Silas Samari, and defense. I'm going UConn to win the national championship, and for actually depth. This is a team that does have that down the line, and playing in a difficult conference, playing against difficult competition all year. I think they have the experience and the ability to get the job done down the line.
Awesome. So UConn and Purdue are our 2 national title championship picks. I'm going to be a homer and say West Virginia. No, I'm not picking West Virginia. I'm going to say this is the year that Big 12 finally. Last year Houston came so close. We saw Texas Tech come close. 3-4 years ago, kind of in between the Baylor and Kansas championship seasons. Yep. Daggone it, I'm picking Houston. Houston's finally going to get it done this year. Kelvin Sampson's got to win a ring, man, before he retires.
He's a phenomenal coach, and I mean they do have Uzan and Sharp back. They've got 2 top 15 prospects, both 5 stars, and the media really liked Joseph Tugler last year, even though he didn't live up to it as much, but he's still a great player.
Yeah, I'm more on Houston than Dylan is. I just think Kelvin Sampson is one of the greatest coaches in college basketball, and he's going to have he can take guys and he finds a way to get them to elevate their game maybe a level higher than they could for other coaches. I think he just had ability, and if you give him guys that are talented, he can just take them to another level. So I'm going to say this is the year, and they're going to be hungry. They're going to have a bad taste in their mouth. I think this is the year Houston gets it done. But again, it's July, and it is what it is. I'll probably be wrong, and I'm okay with that. So, but yeah, thank you guys for doing this. Again, for all of you out there, you'll be seeing these 2 guys here on the channel a lot more. I'm excited about what they're going to bring to the table. A lot more national college basketball Con-12 content, and even we'll continue to cover the Mountaineers here as well. So anyway, thank y'all for tuning into the show. Thanks to Andrew and Dylan for hopping on with us. Y'all have a good day. God bless, and we're done.